Coaches Show coming to you live from Uccello's of Caledonia. We will be here on Tuesday nights, 7 o'clock, YouTube and the Davenport Twitters. So make sure you join us every Tuesday night here at Uccello's of Caledonia for the Davenport Football Coaches Show. Coach Sparky McEwen joins me. I'm Rick Berkey. We'll be talking Davenport football. Davenport opener this Saturday. Oh, we're really excited about that. Truman State, the Bulldogs come up from Missouri, and we will look back at what Davenport did this spring. They were able to get 2 games in after losing the entire fall, as most of the country did in Division II and III. But they were able to get 2 games in. Truman State a little bit more fortunate. They got 4 games in this spring. We'll analyze that as well. But the head coach, Sparky McEwen, joins me right now. And Sparky, let's reflect on this time of year. You've been practicing for roughly a month or so, and what's the state of the team physically, mentally, and how ready are you for the opener this Saturday?
Well, we're excited. We're excited to get this thing going, and it's good to see you again, by the way.
Thank you, as always.
Awesome, and it seems like you've never gone away, though, Rick.
My wife says that same thing a little differently, but go ahead.
But yeah, we're excited to be back. The guys are. We played in the spring, and they got a couple months off, and the whole point of that was to make sure that our guys, stayed sharp, okay? And we had a number of new players come in, obviously the freshman class, and, to get these guys in this fall, in this summer, it was huge because the coaches were able to do some things with them. So, we played 2 games, a lot better than other teams that didn't play any. Obviously, you would have liked to play a lot more games than what we did, but, we'll take what we can, given the fact that playing football during a pandemic says a lot in itself.
I remember talking to you back at that time about, some teams opted not to play those games in the spring. You said, we're ready to compete. We're going to compete.
Yeah, we met as a team, and the team decided that if there's an opportunity to play, that they would like to do so, and the protocols were, they were going to be what they're going to be. And our team did an amazing job following protocols set forth by the CDC and the university. And I couldn't be more proud of those young men. Everyone was affected by it, and they continue to be affected by it. And our guys understand because we've already done it. Okay, we understand how we have to operate, how we have to behave, how we have to conduct ourselves. As young men and coaches and things like that. So, let's continue to do the right things, and hopefully we can get through this pandemic without much of many issues.
One of those things that we want to talk about is the fans coming out to support this team. Again, this Saturday, 12 noon kickoff against Truman State. It's a red out. We're wearing our red tonight. You wear your red to the game. Cheer on the Panthers as they take on the Bulldogs in that opener. Why don't we take a moment, Sparky, and talk about the games you did get in the spring. You played Gannon twice, once at their place, and the second time back at our place. In Game 1, you won 30-22 in Erie, Pennsylvania, and we'll talk about that in depth. And you came back and won Game 2 at home as well. But in Game 1, 30-22, you fell behind 14-6, but then answered with 24 unanswered to eventually win that game by 8 points. And I think you had to feel good about the way the team you fought back.
Well, we did. We felt great about how things, unfolded in that ball game. It was a different deal, though. We played in the spring. Our guys, after we had conversations after that ball game was over, our guys talked about it. It felt so different than fall football. To their credit, they were able to get over it. We fought back. Something, in my tenure here at DU. We've had some great football games, but, we've never been in a situation where our offense had to, seal the deal. And our defense has always carried, our team, and how I feel about defense. Defense is where, you win championships, and our defense was missing some moving pieces for us, and we were able to step it up on the offensive end and close some games and get us some victories there.
One of the keys to that game clearly was Shaq Floyd, who intercepted 3 passes, including the final really clincher, 51-yard pick six by Shaq.
It was amazing because, like you said, it sealed the deal for us, and for him to come in to our organization in January and have the impact that he had in a short amount of time, and it's carried over to, the summer. Shaq's had an amazing camp for us, and I'm happy to say that he's going to be one of our main contributors to this, 2021 fall.
Tell our viewers a little bit more about Shaq, his background.
Here's a young man that was a Division I basketball player. He played at Ball State University, and, things didn't work out for him in hoops, and he went on to a junior college out in California. And my good friend, which is a Hall of Fame coach, Coach Arbet, he had gotten contact with me about him, and we built a relationship, and he did big things with Shaq there, and we're happy to have him. He's a big-time talent. He's got 2 years remaining for us, and class young man, class act, does everything he's supposed to do. He's done well in the classroom, so I'm excited to have him with us.
That's interesting because, you can think of a lot of players through time that went to football and then went to basketball. Not a lot of them went the other way, went to college to play basketball and then went to football afterwards. So he's got to be quite an athlete.
Yeah, and that's what we do. We go after athletes, and I love my basketball players. I love my hoopers. I'm hoping that Byrd allows me to take a couple of those nice basketball players on the Davenport team.
He might be looking the other way. He might see some of your guys say, I can use them on the court.
Yeah, we got a couple actually. Shaq, he may be interested in Shaq Floyd.
You talked about Chandler Garrett in that spring game, who in an emergency situation where you were down on quarterbacks because of injuries and other situations, and you took that young man out of his regular position, threw him in there, and he finished off the game for you.
Well, I wish that it was really truly that way, but it was not exactly how that unfolded for him. You're correct. We took him out of the position that he wasn't playing for DU. But this young man played quarterback, at Central Oklahoma. And he came in, in one ball game, he actually rushed for, I think, close to 400 yards in an individual game. So here was a young man that it was one of the most courageous efforts I've ever seen a player have, because he only practiced that quarterback for that week. But, he reached back to his ties back in Central Oklahoma, and he played at Wyoming, and for him to step up the way he did says a lot about that young man, his character, the way that he competes. Man, my hats goes off to him, but he went on to sustain a terrible hamstring injury, and he's continued to struggle with that injury.
One of the things that he did well there, he threw a 48-yard touchdown pass to Amonte Phillips, and that key phrase right there, to Amonte Phillips, carried over to game two, because you defeated Gannon 37-22, and Amonte Phillips, that outstanding receiver you've got, caught not one, not two, but 3 touchdown passes from DeAndre Ford of 149 and 75 yards. And right now, he looks like he's ready to explode for your program.
We're excited about him. Once again, you're talking about a young man that, for our football team, he's seen as a leader. I have not had that in a receiver. For him to come in and have the impact that he's having, on our football team, he's well liked in our locker room. He's a fiery competitor, passionate about the game, and obviously, as you know, he's a guy that's gotten some NFL looks at this point in time.
Also, one of the things that you've talked about that helped you seal the deal with your offense, in those 2 games, you averaged over 120 yards rushing in those 2 games against Gannon in the spring. That is something we did not see. We saw little flashes of running game here and there, but to get back-to-back games averaging 120 yards a game, that's got to be a big factor for your offense.
It was really important. It's important to the success of any football team, and that's been a struggle for me here, Rick. Whether we didn't have running backs due to loss of athletes due to injury, or just a lack of talent. But right now, I'm extremely excited. That we've got 4 or 5 guys, in our running back room that can carry the ball and carry it at a high level at the Division II level. So to rush for that amount of yards on the average, it was very pleasing to us, and we achieved some of the things that we wanted to achieve in the spring moving into this fall season.
On the defensive side of the ball, a couple of names we'll mention, standouts. There were a number of them, but Alicia Ambassador, your tremendous linebacker, averaged 7 tackles in the 2 games against Gannon in the spring.
You know, he played a lot better in the second game. The first game he kind of felt his way through some things. In his second game, he really, stepped up his game. He's a guy that, he's a Mike linebacker. He's a guy that he's a tremendous leader. He's a guy that has a passion, for the game, and he's mature. He's very mature, and having this young man come to us from the University of Michigan, and it says a lot about our staff and Coach Walker and the recruitment, of this young man. And what a class act in the classroom, well over a 3-point, GPA average, and on his way to graduate. And he's another young man that has been cited by the NFL as a potential prospect in this coming future.
I saw up front with the class act you're talking about. My grandson had him in the locker room, and boy, Alicia could not have been a nicer and a better role model for that young man to see. And he's already got a favorite Panther, and it's Alicia Ambassador. Another guy that played well for you defensively, Brendan Bowman, the 2 games, he had 10 tackles and 3 sacks. And that guy is really coming on defensively. He
is, and he's one of the fan favorites. He's a young man that has a tremendous amount of value. He plays on both sides of the ball. He shares and splits his time as a tight end, and he does. He does a great job for us, and he's an intense, fierce, competitor. He's a young man that we look to make some big plays for us because, quite frankly, at this level, you're going to have big plays on both offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. And he just happens to be one of those guys that can change, the direction of a game, every snap.
And you're going to have to survive big plays when they happen against you. That's a big part of it, too.
Absolutely. You're going to have guys, on the other side of the ball that, can duplicate what's going on, whether it's offense or defense. You got to have that. And, Rick, we're still building depth here. And that's, obviously being a young program, that's been an issue of keeping leads, sustaining leads, competing late in the fourth quarters and things like that. But I feel like we're getting stronger. We're getting deeper as a team. This is my most experienced team coming back. So, I'm extremely excited for the opportunity we have coming this Saturday.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about the opposition and how they did in the spring. Truman State played 4 games this spring, so we'll come back, talk about the Bulldogs. Don't forget that Davenport's opener is this Saturday against Truman State, 12 noon at the farm, as we know it, the Farmers Insurance Athletic Complex. So back with that more as we come to you live from Uccello's of Caledonia.
West Michigan home buyers, if you're considering lenders, please contact Mario Flores at 231-638-0200 at Van Dyke Mortgage on the Lakeshore. It's a wonderful time to be in the market for a mortgage when you choose Van Dyke Mortgage on the Lakeshore. Van Dyke's loan experts know how to help you prepare and help you get approved. Don't wait for the market to be perfect. Start your planning with Mario Flores, branch manager at Van Dyke Mortgage on the Lakeshore.
Mario Flores, NMLS number 135862. Van Dyke Mortgage Corporation, Corp. NMLS number 3035. 231-638-0200. MarioFlores.VanDykeMortgage.com. Van Dyke Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
And we continue here with the Davenport Football Coaches Show, coming to you live from Uccello's of Caledonia. So we are talking football. Davenport, we talked about their spring games. Truman State, the opposition this week, had 4 games that they were able to get in this spring. They won their first 3, beating Southwest Baptist 38-20, then knocking off William Jewell at home 34-15. They defeated Missouri S&T on the road 42-31 before falling at Indianapolis 46-29. Those numbers show right away, Sparky, a very potent offense for the Bulldogs. They averaged almost 400 yards a game in those 4 contests.
Yeah, this team here is one of the most complete teams that, in my tenure here at DU that we would have played. It starts all with the trigger man, the quarterback. This young man, he's young, playing this abbreviated season that they did in the GLVC. He did some really big things, and I know that staff couldn't be more excited about the production that he had taking over for a veteran signal caller that they had there. So here's a guy, when it comes to RPOs, he's pretty good. He's very sound. He's a smart young man. He's what I call a good point guard. He knows how to distribute, the football. And he's got some tremendous weapons around him now, in the backfield. He's got a young man in the backfield, and Cody, he reminds me of Seth. Here's a young man, and Rick, that me getting Seth back is huge. Well, they've got one. They've got one over there that plays a tremendous role.
Cody Schrader. He averaged a little over 100 yards a game in those 4 spring games.
Yeah, he's very exciting and he's very tough. But they come back, with a young man, Jalen, that, man, he's electric. He could go on another team and start, for them. And he's a guy that he's a little different runner, a different style, in our offense right now, man, it's thunder and lightning with those two. So, starting with that backfield is a tremendous backfield. But, they have a tight end in Jake,
Jake Tuttle.
Big Jake. Wait till you see this guy. This guy here he's 6'6", 6'7". He's a big fella. He knows how to box you out. You can tell this guy has played basketball in his career. Man, he gets there and he puts that derriere on you. He boxes you out, and they throw it to him. And he's a chain mover. And he's going to present a problem to us. Okay, he's going to present a problem, and he's the number one target. On the receiving core, and they got a couple guys on the outside on the perimeter that play well. And Dante Ruffin, he's legit. They got a couple other guys that are supporting cast that do a tremendous job. And that offensive line, they do a good job. So it's a good scheme. So we got our hands full on the offensive side there.
You mentioned the top 3 guys you mentioned, Cody Schrader, Jalen Jefferson, and Jake Tuttle. All 3 of those guys in the spring had in rushes of over 45 yards at one time, so they're certainly explosive there. Your defensive coaches are going to be scheming, and one of the things that they have to acknowledge is that not only did they get almost 400 yards a game, it's evenly split almost right down the middle between passing and rushing, which makes it tougher as you prepare.
Like I said, this here, scheme that these guys run, hats off to their coaches. They do a tremendous job of, implementing a scheme that's going to give teams fits. And it all starts with a trigger man. If you don't have a trigger man to make that thing happen, it's going to be tough.
But quarterback Nolan here.
Yeah, yep. He can play. He can play now. So we're going to have our hands full, and our staff knows it. And, it's one of those deals where, you sit there and you just kind of bang your head against the wall and say, well, what can we do? What can we do? Some of this is going to have to come out too. We just got to play hard and in hopes that, it's not a perfect night for them, and this is how good, this team is. So we're fired up for the challenge, but our guys know we respect our opponents. And our guys know we give credit to where credit is due. And on tape, this is one of the best teams that I've seen, that we would have played to date.
You mentioned your staff. Let's talk a little bit about a few of the newcomers that you've got. You've got some new faces on the staff, and what they bring to the table for you.
We've got some changes on our staff, and we've got some guys that I think can, I like to say teach. Okay, it was important to make sure that, we filled the shoes, from the guys that we lost, and we lost some really good coaches, and I wanted to make sure that, this next hire in that position, I want to get some teachers because we still got a young program. We've got young people, and making sure that our guys are willing to do whatever it takes for this, these players to learn from our coaches. So Thomas Byrd, he's in here as a offensive coordinator, and he brings, a wealth of knowledge. He's been a coordinator, at the collegiate level, and he's going to bring to us some different things, that we hadn't been doing here. So I'm excited for that. Robert Taylor, man, it's been a treat for me to get him back. And, he's worked with me for years. He worked with me at the high school level. He's worked with me at the pro level.
The Rampage.
Yeah, and now at the collegiate level. And he brings a lot, to the table with intensity, with discipline and just a physicality, to my receiving core that I felt like we really needed to get back, to being physical as receivers.
You mentioned that your offense was able to step up this year and in the spring at least and put some games away. When you get that offense going more in the direction that you want, and it's going in that direction, do you change anything defensively that you were doing before? I guess, philosophically, do you think, okay, I can do more, I can take more chances, or do you say, nope, this is our game, we're staying with it?
Well, we've got some brilliant young coaches over there, and these guys have been the MVPs of my staff. These guys are tremendous workers. Coach Walker, Coach McEwen, Coach Mello, Manny. These guys are really good, detailed, young coaches, and they did some professional development, this year, and we're actually, we're going to do some different things this year. They've, I've kind of challenged them, to go off and meet with some of the guys at the highest level, and so we can implement some of those schemes to where, we want to attack, be a little more attacking, and obviously I had to go back over this COVID time and study some things. I want to be a little more gap sound. So we've learned some things over there. Our philosophy, for the most part, is going to, be the same, but we've changed our scheme enough to possibly help us in the way we need to be helped.
You mentioned the COVID element. We've already seen it impact this weekend. Grand Valley State's home opener canceled because Edinburgh from Pennsylvania had a COVID outbreak and could not make the trip and play this Saturday. What are the prospects and the concerns at your program level as far as not just this week, but just in general about that threat that is always there and how you deal with it?
Well, we've got what we call in our place, option, 1, 2, and 3. And, we've got to work longer hours because of options 1, 2, and 3, meaning how are we going to act when we lose this player? How are we going to act when we lose, this unit? How are we going to practice? So there's so many things that goes into the details of preparation for playing during the pandemic. Now, if we hadn't played in the spring, I wouldn't know how to do this. So, we're educated in it now. Does that make us better than everyone else? No, it just makes us a little smarter and know how we have to operate. Now, everyone's going to struggle, right now, and I'm very aware of what happened with, the Grand Valley State University and their game and not playing in that game, and it's very unfortunate. But until our pandemic goes in a different direction, these are the things that are going to happen.
What would you tell the fans that have never seen a Davenport football team play about this year's team come out because of these elements?
This group's a very unique group. We will look much different from week 1 to week 11. Okay, I feel good about the team, but there's a lot of unknowns. And Rick, you've been around me long enough that I'm a glass, half full guy.
Yeah.
And I like to think that, we're going to stay healthy and young guys are going to pick up their game and we're going to build depth. And just as soon as you feel that way, some things change. But then again, those guys that were number 2s, they end up being, the number 1s. And I'm very positive about our football team. I think, once again, the later that we play into our season, the better we're going to be. This coming Saturday, it's going to be exciting. We're playing against a team that this team's legit. This is an opener that most teams run from. But when myself and Mr. Loudon, we sat down and we talked about what do we want for our kids? What do we want for our student athletes? And we want to try and build a championship culture here. And the only way you can do that is by playing the best. And our schedule happens to be one of the toughest schedules in the country, especially when you play the GLIAC champs twice, and then you play one of the GLIAC powerhouses, and then you play another team that's one of the best coached teams twice, that's from up north, So we've got a schedule.
That's something a lot of fans aren't aware of, and they'll learn as we go along. Is because of the shortage and the shrinking of the GLIAC, as you've lost one player this year, and Northwood goes out after this year. They leave the GLIAC. Scheduling has become a real challenge. Davenport will play Ferris State twice this year, Northern Michigan twice this year. The first Ferris game will be the third game or fourth game of the season. I don't have fourth game of the season. That will be the non-conference game at Big Rapids. Then later in the year, we will play them at our place, and it will be the conference game.
Correct.
So that's a different approach from a football standpoint. Baseball and basketball do it all the time, where you play home and home, but not at the football level. How are you looking at that?
Well, I'm familiar with it, and that's why I scheduled Gannon twice. Okay, I did that from the from the surface. With our players, these young people have never done that, okay? Myself with Coach Taylor, because we've coached at the professional level, we know what it feels like and looks like to play a team twice. And I sat back when we were scheduling, we're looking at opponents, and I said, here's a great opportunity now to show our boys, win, lose, or draw, it didn't matter to me, but how it feels to play an opponent twice. Now, if we had lost that first game, how are we going to respond the second time? Fortunately, we won that first game. Now my conversations are a lot different in that locker room, and I felt proud, about my staff, making sure that we prepared our boys to come home, because, sometimes you can get overconfident, okay? And they came home and they actually, played better than what they did the first game, and we got the win to go undefeated for the spring.
All right, Sparky. Well, just we're ready to lock it up and get out there and take them on Saturday, and it'll be fun, 12 noon. I know you want the fans to come out there and cheer on the red and black.
Man, I tell you what, I'm so excited to get back in front of our fans. We didn't really have an opportunity to get them in there. So we're looking forward to a packed house. The weather's going to be outstanding, and our game day operations, man, is going to be electric, and our players, they're ready to explode.
All right, that wraps things up for tonight's Davenport Coaches Show. For Coach Sparky McEwen, I'm Rick Berkey. If you're watching us live, join us again next Tuesday at 7 o'clock for our next show. If you're listening to our rebroadcast on Magic 104.9, Davenport football is next with the Panthers taking on the Truman State Bulldogs. Go Panthers!